For decades, militaries have sought to extend the effective range of soldiers and support staff that were armed solely with a handgun. The German military attempted this in World War I with their C-96 equipped with a wooden stock that also doubled as a shoulder holster, as well as their Parabellum P08. Decades later, the Italians attempted a similar concept with the Beretta 93R, a select fire version of the 92 equipped with a folding metallic stock. Now, while all these designs differ greatly in appearance, they were all designed around the same concept: increase the shooter's survivability without impeding their mobility. And what else do these weapons have in common? Well, all of them failed to take in consideration the inherent limitations of using a handgun for anything outside of close quarters combat, which is to say short sight radius, reduced projectile velocity, and laughable terminal ballistics at anything past 50 yards. Now, while the latter two are unavoidable with current military arms and ammunition, the first, is not. Enter the CAA Micro Roni, available for the Glock 17 and 19 models. The Micro Roni, like the Roni that came before it, is a chassis for Glock semi-automatic pistols that transforms the polymer frame sidearm into an ultra-compact, shoulder-fired, PDW-esque little carbine. This addition alone easily doubles the effective range of a stock Glock, simply because it enables a shooter to better stabilize the firearm and obtain a more precise, unwavering sight picture. Plus, the added points of contact reduce felt recoil, which gets shooters back on target more quickly. The Micro Roni follows in the footsteps of the original Roni, but in a smaller, lighter package, with many desirable options built into the system itself. For instance, the Micro Roni includes an integral tactical light that can be swapped out from left to right-handed operation without tools. Shooters who prefer their own tactical light can install one on either of the included Picatinny accessory rails on the left and right sides of the handguard. Now, both of these rails ship with thumb rests installed, and beneath them is a feature unique to the SBR version of the Micro Roni, a combination foregrip spare magazine carrier. It features texturized surfaces for a more positive grip and retains the spare magazine with a combination of tension and friction. While this might not sound very secure, removing the spare mag is actually really difficult, and in fact, during training, none of those magazines fell loose despite hundreds, if not thousands, of rounds fired through the guns. Now, built into this foregrip is the one feature I dislike about the design: the safety. When mounted on a Glock pistol, the addition of a manual safety is pointless, especially since it's a non-mechanical one. It simply blocks access to the trigger. For me, this isn't a deal breaker because a shooter can just choose to not use it. Plus, the Glock's safe action trigger provides more than enough safety for me, provided I keep my booger hook off the bang switch. Now, back to some features I do like. The two most effective ones on the Roni, at least in terms of extending the effective range of a host pistol, are the full-length Picatinny rail and side-folding polymer stock. The increased stability advantages of running a stock are obvious, but what about optics? Well, inarguably, magnified optics are unnecessary on a firearm chambered in a caliber whose effective range is shorter than a football field. But a reflex sight like the SIG Romeo 3 installed here makes fast aiming easier by simplifying the aiming process. You don't align two objects, you just put the dot on top of your target. Still, I was struggling to see the big picture behind the Micro Roni. What was the impetus behind its development, and when would it be a better option than a traditional pistol caliber carbine or a submachine gun? Well, to fully understand its roots, you need to understand the environment it was born from. One of the driving goals in IDF training is to achieve an 80% hit rate in combat, a feat that most American soldiers and law enforcement officers would denounce as impossible. But in the IDF, this requirement makes sense. The overwhelming majority of their operations take place in civilian-occupied regions. This being the case, precision is a must, and that level of precision from a handgun is frankly unreasonable to expect from anything short of a master-level IPSC shooter running a race gun. So what was CAA's solution to increasing this hit rate on a sidearm like the Glock 17? Well, the engineers decided to take the best aspects of the most prolific pistol design, the Glock, namely its reliability, and integrate aspects of other firearms that bridge the shortcomings of a pistol when shoehorned into a medium-range weapon role, namely an optics rail and a folding stock. But what makes this a better option than, say, something like, a submachine gun? With the exception of SIG's MPX and H&K's roller-delayed MP5, most subguns utilize an open bolt operation, which is extremely reliable but surprisingly violent and often produces more felt recoil than a 5.56 direct impingement carbine like an AR-15. And the recoil only gets worse with automatic fire. If you're plinking on a range, no big deal, right? Neither of these are real thumpers, and all but the weakest shooters can handle their recoil just fine. But when seconds matter and civilians grossly outnumber bad guys, the reduced recoil of the locked breech operation of the Glock is a tangible advantage. Plus, the cost of a Micro Roni and a Glock semi-automatic pistol are drastically lower than any SMG or new military-grade pistol caliber carbine. Now personally, I believe that in our age of active shooter scenarios, the Roni would be a great tool for the bike-mounted officer first on the scene. He might not be able to bring his long gun with him, but within 5 seconds can transform his service handgun into a little carbine, and at least partially level the playing field against his aggressor. With an MSRP of $250, the Micro Roni SBR stock really adds a great deal of functionality to the Glock semi-automatic handgun. If I were limited to a sidearm or a modification of that for home defense or self-defense, it'd be a no-brainer to pick one up. The only thing I don't like about the Micro Roni compared to the full-size Roni is in its current configuration, it's impossible to install a sound suppressor on the host Glock when mounted inside the Roni. Now this could be remedied with a Dremel and some time, but I personally would prefer to not have to carve out the front end of the chassis. Suppressor incompatibility aside, the Roni still has a lot of great things going for it. Look, I don't think installing a pair of oversized post and notch iron sights would do the Roni or the Glock underneath it any favors, even with the extended sight radius. I will say the addition of a reflex sight like the SIG Romeo 3 or an Aimpoint or maybe even an EOTech or the Hartmann MH1, combined with this integral foregrip, thumb rest, flashlight, folding stock, extended charging handle, and this QD mount, make for a formidable little carbine that doesn't break the bank. One that offers operational flexibility to police officers or for first responders in the field who would otherwise be limited to a sidearm. Before I go, I want to take a moment to say thank you to the manufacturers and companies that provided us with gear out at the CAA event at Altair Training Solutions in Imoleki, Florida. That was Vertex for the clothing, Breakthrough for cleaning materials, of course CAA for the Ronis and the pistols inside them, Hartmann Industries for their reflex sight, and Triumph Target Systems for their awesome reaction targets and their bleeding targets. Both are very cool. And special thanks to L-Tech Ammunition for providing some of their lead-free ultralight ammunition for the Roni and for the AR-15s we utilized during the course. And of course to Lieutenant Colonel Mike Hartmann himself and his cadre of awesome instructors who were incredibly knowledgeable. Thanks guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more burst reviews on the CAA event and other products including SHOT Show 2017. Thanks guys.